we've still got some people joining, but in respect of everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started here. So as said, everybody, please be mindful of their mics. Everybody is muted currently, but at the end of today's conversation, we'll open it up for questions. So in the meantime, for right now, everybody, please keep your mics muted. For those of you that did not hear, if you haven't put your name, organization, and email in the chat, please do so. Additionally, today's meeting is being recorded, so it will be available for review and published to the Atlas or the project website. Excuse me, that QR code that's on the screen there. So if you'd like to navigate to that, you can go there and pull some of the reports that have already been published. And additionally, the Atlas website that's up there, it's the Geospatial Center where you can view the evacuation zones and the wind swaths and just a plethora of information. So encourage you to visit both of those websites. So thank you for everyone for being here today. My name is Kyle Donlevy. I'm with the Army Corps of Engineers out of the Galveston District. So this is a FEMA-funded project, but the Corps of Engineers is doing the project management and the contractual piece of it. So to my left here is Gerald Gaines. He's also assisting me with this project. So it was long overdue. We're glad to receive the funding and provide this information to you guys. So Ari Thomas, who's on today's call out of FEMA Region 6, is the National Hurricane Program Manager for the region, and she's assisting us as well. I'd like to thank Blake White and Michael Bradbury with Tatum. They've been helping us assemble these meetings and get the notifications out to you. And then with Texas A&M, Walt is the lead professor on this, and then he's got David, Doug, Daryl, and Alexander assisting him as well. But I know we originally scheduled this meeting to present the final results, but if you did not get the memo, today is just an update on the transportation and shelter analysis. So we don't have a finalized timeline on when the final report will be published, but we'll be releasing that as soon as we get it. We hope to have an update, hopefully within this week, but if not, next week. So be looking for that to come out. We'll host another meeting to present those final results of the final report. So that's all I have. Walt, or David, I'm not sure who's going to go first. It looks like David, but if you guys want to take it, thank you.
Sure. Our presentation today will go through a little bit on the evacuation, sheltering, behavioral analysis. David will walk us through that. I'll give us a review of the evacuation scenarios that we all agreed on that we will be running, and then Daryl will walk through some of the transportation analysis and give you some examples of the overall figures and in terms of the clearance times. I'll show a little animation that Doug has worked up, and we'll be posting some of these animations on the project website, and also some additional information about clearance curves for each of the counties and understanding what their anticipated clearance times would be given the different scenarios as well too. And then we'll open up for questions and kind of finish things off then as well too. So I'll turn it over to David to kind of walk us through the behavioral and shelter analysis.
Great. Thanks, Walt. Can
Sure.
everyone hear me?
Yep.
Good. Okay. All right. So we're going to review as kind of an intro, as Walt indicated, some of the evacuation and sheltering behavior information. A lot of this we've talked about with members of this group from the local jurisdictions. making sure that we've got different voices and folks represented. So what the evacuation and sheltering behavior is looking at previous studies, and fortunately for Texas, we've got a number of studies that have been done, including on major evacuations over the past couple decades. So we're looking at, what are the participation levels and motivators for evacuees, hurricane evacuees in particular. Then how does that affect what we know about sheltering? And when we're talking about sheltering, it of course includes public sheltering. That is usually only a small fraction of what happens with most folks either staying with friends and family and or commercial accommodations, hotels and motels. Evacuation response timing and destinations and corridors, vehicle use, how many folks are taking vehicles, how many folks are taking trailers, and then most importantly is getting this information feeding into the transportation models. Next slide, please. Okay, so on the participation, as I mentioned, there's a lot of historical research going back to hurricanes Rita, Ike, et cetera, that have been major impacts on the southeast Texas area. The table on the left is from a publication by Dr. Mike Lindell, who along with Dr. Peacock has done a lot of work with colleagues in this area. This is a summary from that, basically looking at as risk increases. And as hurricane strength here, I know there's been a lot of discussion about using category. For the historical research, we see that as, hurricane strength increases and proximity to risk increases, more often folks tend to comply with evacuation orders. There's also a lot of information about what motivates folks to follow evacuation orders. And this is in kind of a rough order of importance based on the previous research. So, official warnings, certainly the messages coming out from local and state EMAs, as well as what's going on, what can I see, what are the cues that I get, and also where do I live and what are my kinds of accommodations, including with mobile home. And mobile homes comes into this because it's also not only a warning criteria. Sometimes we have officials might say, hey, if you're in a vulnerable housing such as a mobile home that might not have certain kinds of wind resistance, you might consider evacuating as well. So there's some a number of things about motivations. Let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so and this is a summary table. There's going to be more in the report on the evacuation and sheltering behavior, where we've gone through and summarized the previous research on each of these areas that we're talking about today. For the sheltering demand, we've basically looked at what are the populations in different counties and different evacuation zones within those counties. Remember that we're not following hurricane categories per se, we're following a risk area, coastal A, B, and C, and then outside those zone areas. So we can look at the populations in those, we can say, what are the expectations about participation in that? And then we can also use some estimates as to how many folks we think might be participating in public shelters. We know, of course, many folks will be helping out their friends and family by letting them stay with them during an evacuation, which is great. But not everybody has that. And so sometimes we have public shelters and we can look at what is the estimates of demand. In this case, this is covering what we call the major surge evacuation and the higher shelter participation rates, which is looking at more conservative estimates on numbers of folks leaving and numbers of folks using public shelters. Basically 5% of general evacuees and 10% of mobile home resident evacuees. We're also going to present in the report estimates for a step down in surge, which is what we call significant surge, and Walt's going to get into these definitions. But this is basically the higher level of public shelter usage by area that we've come up with on the estimates. So you can see here on the numbers, obviously, counties and jurisdictions, areas with more folks. Has more folks that might need public sheltering help. We have also looked at and talked with a number of you all about the estimates for shelter capacity. The latest data that we've got available for this study in a comprehensive way across the area comes from 2019 from the Highfields, which is also sourced and aligned with ARC data. But after talking with many folks, I think we got a hot mic out there, but after talking with many folks, it appears that those data are not going to be useful for this particular analysis. They are not quite fresh enough. And so what we are doing is encouraging folks to review the public shelter capacities in their own jurisdictions, make sure they've got the agreements lined up, and make sure that they've got facilities lined up to be able to accommodate folks that are expected to be taking public shelter in their jurisdictions. We've also provided a number of website links that might be helpful for that planning. Next slide. We also looked at evacuation response timing, again, going back to what we've seen in previous hurricane events and based on survey data that we've distributed and received back. And so, for example, on the left is something that we saw, Hurricane Rita, and basically following over a couple-day period. So that's one way to look at it in terms of a cumulative probability scale. And then another way to do that is to take those data and put them over a histogram as to number of when folks left and how many folks left. And we can time those again against when we have official notifications and landfall. So we're seeing basically over major storms that impact the central and southeast Texas area, basically a 2-day evacuation response. Next slide. All right, so we've also pulled together from a number of studies different destinations, and we're going to hear about Walt and Daryl talk about the different runs that we're doing for the scenarios and transportation analysis. We've split this up to look at 3 different regions or evacuation zones. So we've got on the upper right is the sort of Sabine area extending down to Galveston, and then we've got sort of the middle area around the HGAC area, and then we've got the lower part of this study, which goes down into the Coastal Bend area. And using some previous survey responses, we can estimate the destination areas for folks that have evacuated based on the previous research. And so for example, on the upper right, if we've got folks that are evacuating from the upper zone for this study, 16% of them, we estimate based on the previous research, 16% might be going to another state, mostly Louisiana. 38% are staying in East Texas, 26% to Central Texas, 11% to North Texas, 5% along the coast, and 4% out to West Texas. Again, this is based on survey responses that we've had for previous storms. Next slide. Okay, so we've got a lot of data, and you're going to be seeing that coming out in the report for the study, but there's particular aspects of the previous work that feed into the transportation models. So looking at the prior evacuation and sheltering behavior information, we've got about 2 people per vehicle on average. We're looking at 11% of the vehicles towing a trailer. Based on conversations, we've basically agreed not to use any internal sheltering percentages. This is a conservative estimate, which loads up more folks onto the transportation network. Again, very low percentages of folks using public transit the same way. This also aligns with previous survey research that we've had for other storms. low percent of population as pedestrians, especially when we're talking about cross-county evacuations. And then in terms of response times, we're looking at a shorter response times of 12 hours and then a longer response times of going over 2 days, which shows up in time frames of 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. on the first day, 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. on the second day, but that's just when the initial network is loaded, and it ends up being that the evacuation, of course, is taking place throughout a longer time frame than that. So that covers what I've got on the evacuation and behavior. Walt, are we taking questions in between speakers, or are we going to save them for the end?
I think we'll just save them for the end.
Okay, that's what I've got. Thank you.
All right, I'll review the basic plan that was executed in terms of the evacuation scenarios that we all went over through a number of different meetings as well too. The general goal here was to capture likely evacuation scenarios for the regional cluster of counties, including some of the parishes in Louisiana, as well as some of the additional counties along the coast that might be involved in that evacuation, so we can actually attempt to address the traffic that would be flowing over areas as well too. We deviated from our initial 3 planning areas that we utilized to help rethink about the evacuation zones, as well as covering some of the things with respect to the vulnerability analysis. And we're hoping these areas capture better what are likely evacuation calls across the area, especially in terms of the coastal areas that are likely to be impacted. How the evacuees flow might be through the counties. Again, a good bit of that is based on the actual behavioral studies that have been done before in terms of where people are headed, and the potential flow to, again, to adjacent counties as well as into the area from adjacent counties. So our final regions are kind of the upper middle. I've got the counties laid out there, but basically we're talking this area here, and then the lower middle area that would include the area around the HEAC area, and then the lower component as well too and stuff. So we're kind of divided it up into those 3 different areas to run all the different evacuation scenarios. The scenarios themselves were kind of divided into 2 basic sets of scenarios, kind of a baseline set of scenarios to give y'all a good idea of what the evacuation times might be given different kinds of surge events, looking at a limited, moderate, significant, and major, and I'll talk about those a little bit more completely in just with the next slide. And then some special scenarios as well too, to provide additional information on what may happen given certain other characteristics in terms of flow into the area as well as outflow in the area. Good bit of discussion in terms of the nature of the response times, and basically it was decided that we should go with 12-hour versus and 2-day scenarios, with the 2-day having 70% folks leaving day 1, 30% day 2. If you remember, we had talked about doing an 8-hour scenario, and then a good bit of response to that, really wanting to work with 12 hours rather than 8 hours. We've got varying participation rates with respect to each of those response times. I'll review those in just a second, but those varying response rates are based upon not only the zones themselves, but also in terms of shadow evacuation. And shadow evacuation, depending upon the nature of the surge event we're looking at, could be adjacent zones as well as areas outside of the evacuation zones. We've got a constant set of assumptions that were agreed upon by all the participants there. One, the inclusion of the seasonal population, and just to basically include them as part of the residential populations themselves without any early calls. No adjustments in terms of background traffic and traffic incidents. Work on that has showed that to be somewhat variable in terms of the actual consequences for that in terms of the times as well too. And no earlier special calls for the mobile homes or kind of phasing as well too. So those, again, are the constant assumptions that are played out with each and every one of the scenarios. And then we've got these variable assumptions in terms of response times as well as participation rates. In total, we've run or will have run 88 final scenarios. Honestly, we've run way into the hundreds, or will be run way into the hundreds now with different work we've done with respect to Route PM and modifications that we've made given some of the results that came out that did not quite fit what the expectations would be in terms of behavioral kinds of response and assumptions as well too. Come on. So this kind of gets in a bit more detail in terms of the nature of the scenarios themselves. Again, we've got basically 4 different scenarios: limited surge, moderate surge, significant, and major, where limited is basically a surge event that's going to impact the coastal zone. Moderate would be coastal and zone A. Significant would be coastal zones A and B, and then major coastal zone as well as A, B, and C. Again, nothing here in terms of the actual categories that we've seen of storms. We've seen that there certainly are correlated, but they can be different. So our focus here is again on the surge in those areas. Again, the variable components are the participation rates. And we have included a series of 3 for limited through significant surge. We've run each of these scenarios at 40% participation, 70% participation, and then 100% participation. For major events, which again would be coastal A, B, and C, figuring these would be quite significant storms, we're looking at we ran these at 70 and 100% evacuation. And then shadow evacuations that actually ratchet up as well too in terms of adjacent zones and zones outside. As you can see, for example, with moderate here, we're running those with shadow evacuation at 20% for zone C and 10% for zone C. Now, can y'all see is my arrow showing up there in the slides? Somebody give me a verbal great. Okay.
Yes.
Good. Thank you. And then for significant, we've got a 30% shadow and then 20% for total outside. And then for major events, we've got 30% outside as well too. And those, again, were derived through discussions with participants in our scenario development themselves as well too. Again, response times, 12-hour and 2-day response times. And what, again, we're hoping is that these basic baseline scenarios will give a whole range of clearance times that we can see what those clearance times then are as the nature of the surge event increases, as well as the participation rates increase as well too. So it should give a good set of clearance times data for y'all to employ in terms of your subsequent planning. We're also running a set of special scenarios for the upper middle area. We'll be running special ones that would include 2 Louisiana parishes. That's 10 additional runs there for the full region. We've got a number of different scenarios that we're running there. I'll get into those specifically. And then for the middle and lower region, those regions that are most impacted in terms of vacuum lanes and contraflow, we're running the series of scenarios, the significant and major, with evacuum lanes in effect, as well as then a series with evacuum lanes and contraflow within effect as well too. So again, in terms of our final runs, there'll be at least 88 runs which will present the data and have tables for each of those as well too. Just to give you a little bit more detail there for each of the regions. This is again, the different scenarios that are being run. These are the counties in the upper middle region. This gives you a estimated number of individuals and vehicles, as well as the seasonal population in these areas that would be included in each of the runs. Again, just for the baseline, we've got 22 scenarios that are being run, and then we've got a series of special ones that include the 2 parishes from Louisiana as well too. We've looked at their reports and their anticipation in terms of their work with respect to where people would likely be flowing. And so what we're including there is about a 25% participation, and those we're constraining to head west into Texas, so we can see then what the consequences might be for even more vehicles then that would be entering into Texas and be involved in the evacuation as well too. So those are baseline scenarios and special ones for the upper middle. For the middle lower, these are the counties for the middle lower area. Again, we're running the same set of basic scenarios for this area. This gives you the numbers of individuals, vehicles, and seasonal populations. As you can see, we're looking at massive numbers increase there, especially with the inclusion of Harris County and as well as Brazoria in the baseline scenarios. And then here are the lower ones as well too then. So with the lower ones, we're including Brazoria and Matagorda and Jackson County in there, adding in Victoria and Calhoun. We're going ahead and running for the lower and the coastal Bend area. We're running all of these with Victoria and Calhoun in there. They're not massive numbers of individuals in there, but we can go ahead and run those without a major consequence in terms of increasing the times for the Route PM runs themselves as well too and stuff. And then we've got for the full area running that. This is I guess this is the worst of the worst of the worst in terms of what might be expected, but does, quite frankly, you know, if we look at what happened with Rita as well too, we certainly saw lots of evacuation throughout these areas as the storm began to, at least the projections of the storm began to drift north and then kind of focus on Harris County for a while until it finally the last set came out for the upper coast there as well too. But we're running these at both significant as well as with major surge in these areas, and including the evacuations as well too, evacuations and contraflow in this area, just to see what the response times, the clearance times would be for this area as well too. You'll notice that the vacuum lanes and contraflow are a good bit further out, so where our kind of endpoints are there have been moved out from the initial counties there, so we can actually capture what the flow is likely to be for those areas. So that then is the summary for the different scenarios that were developed. And now Daryl will kind of walk you through a little bit on Route PM itself, on what he's found in terms of running Route PM and some results with respect to that. Daryl?
Thank you, Walt. You know, just kind of briefly, why are we doing a transportation analysis? It's to give the clearance times for the regions. And you know, we ran, you know, we tried to do all these scenarios, and it gives Route PM gives a pretty good number, but this is really the reason why, and actually the numbers that come out of this analysis, the transportation analysis, do get plugged into HERVAC, so all the emergency managers have easy access to the numbers. Next, please, Walt. And I'm not going to spend a lot of detail on Route PM, and if anybody wants some more details on it, just let me know, and we can schedule another separate call individually to discuss that. But Route PM stands for Real-Time Evacuation Planning Model, and in my opinion, there's really nothing real time about it, because real time to me means it has real time traffic data in there, which it does not. But real time, it does have a road network in there that you can modify. You can close roads, add shoulder lanes, do contraflow. You can add new roads between existing nodes. Um, and one handy thing is, because the road network, can be several years old. It's not updated, every year. You can go in and change the capacity of some roads if you need to. If there's been some major construction projects that have been completed, you can put that in there as well. And Route PM is a cloud-based software, which means you don't need any fancy computer to run it. It runs in the cloud, and you just get an account and log in and do all your stuff. Population totals are from the latest census data, and it has daytime and nighttime. And for this analysis, we always use nighttime population, because it will stimulate people leaving from their residence. And as Walt alluded to, we can add seasonal populations. And I'll talk a little bit more about how you can define the evacuating traffic, but in a nutshell, you can let Route PM assign traffic to different regions, or if you have some better information like a behavioral analysis, you can do some stuff in the background to help it move traffic more as to how people will really move. You can customize for each zone, and populations are imported for each zone. You can adjust them, change the percentage of population evacuating to all those numbers that Walt was talking about. And what you get is you end up with an estimated clearance time. It does that. The model itself puts out one number, which is the last car to reach an endpoint. Now, the good thing is that there are other ways to get some more details out of there with some GIS exports, and Walt will talk a little bit about that later. So let's just go to the next one, please. And briefly, how we did this is, the first thing, you import the shape files for each of the evacuation zones. And this is just not a shapefile for county. It does have each individual zone in there, as well as the outside zones with no evacuation. So we could do the shadow evacuees. You change the settings for each zone, and David talked about some of those with the percentage of vehicles and pulling trucks and per average estimated persons per vehicle. Now, a couple things that we did not adjust were, you can also adjust incidents and stuff like that. And we decided not to do that because the literature says a lot of that is within Route PM. It does a lot of that assigns those randomly. And we felt that if we just left those as they were with no adjustments, we could get a better comparison among the scenarios. We build the road network, including the endpoints, and we had discussions months ago about where to put the endpoints with all the local agencies and stuff like that. So those were decided at that point. And then we have to go through a process that I've called vetting the network. And what that is, after all the road network is in, you try to run the model, and it will stop because it may not initially connect all the population blocks to the road network. So the process to fix that is, you go into each, adjust the road network to include those blocks, run it again, then it might move to the next block, and you fix it, and so on and so on. And I think maybe the lower region, it was only about 8 to 10 iterations to complete that. The upper was maybe about 15 or 20. But when I got into the middle region, a lot of the Harris County stuff, it probably was 80 to 90 different iterations to go through. So that took a while. Route PM also had some downtime issues. Some of that was due to the Amazon web server when all those went belly up across the nation. It took a while to get all that resolved, get everything back up. And another thing that kind of impacted the speed at which we could run through the analysis was that there's another HES study going on for the Northeast area, which includes New York, and they were, running models as well. And Route PM only allows, 3 or 4 different models to be run at the same time. You can queue them up, but you don't get the results back immediately. It takes a while to run. The lower ones were maybe 7 to 8 minutes. The upper 20 to 30 minutes, some 40-minute runs. But when we got into the larger Houston area, Harris County, with that population, it could take 2 to 3 hours from when you submitted a job and it started running to get the results back. Initially, we did not weight the endpoints. We just let Route PM do its job, and then to assign them to the roads as it did internally. And when we started looking at some of the results, they did not look reasonable. They did not match what the behavioral analysis said. So we had to basically go through and start over and redo everything, and went through a weighting process evaluation where we also ran some models, weighted the endpoints, and then looked at the results and continued to adjust the endpoints weights as necessary until we could get the results, reasonably matching the behavioral analysis as to where people were heading, what their destination was. So let's go to the next one, please, Walt. And I'm not going to go into these a lot of detail, but and I didn't want to put everything on here because it would kind of clutter up the slide. But these are some of the results. I'm going to go through these for each region real briefly. For the limited, moderate, significant, major surge, these are the ranges for the 12-hour response time and the response time over 2 days for the lower region. And they're, even though I only have like the second line 12.8 to 12.9, there's actually another number between there. One was for the first one is basically for the 40% evacuation rate. There's a 70% in the middle, then there's 100% at the end, and those will be included in the final report. And the population numbers are the same way, the ranges based on surge and percents that Walt had. And we did snip all those little charts over to the left. Might be a little hard to see, but this is kind of what we're looking at for the lower region, which is Brazoria, Matagorda, Jackson, and the 2 Calhoun and Victoria, which were not exactly in the study area, but as Walt alluded to, we thought it would be a good idea to include them because they would likely be called at the same time. And let's just go to the next one. Walt, this is the upper middle, which has all the upper counties with the addition of Galveston County. And you can see the ranges here are pretty consistent across the board when you get to the moderate, significant, and major surge numbers. The first rounds are a little lower, but as you notice that even in the limited surge and the 12-hour response, it doesn't really change a whole lot from the, because I think we only maybe only zone A in those, and coastal are at 100%. So those are pretty consistent. And in the major surge, these do include the vacuum lanes over in the Beaumont area for the major surge scenario. Let's just go to the next one. Okay, and this is the big one. That includes Liberty, Chambers, Galveston, Harrison, and Brazoria counties. As you can see, when you get into the moderate and significant surge, the numbers get really, really big, and we're still working on the vacuum lane contraflow. we were leaving those to the end because they take a little longer and extra work to set up. So, and one of the questions you might be seeing looking at the numbers, well, the 12-hour response time, for the significant, for the higher population, it's the same, for the 12-hour response time as well as over 2 days. And, you have to remember that the way Route PM works, over the 2 days, we loaded population from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. The 70% for the first day, and then the remaining 30% the second day. So they were spread out over a longer time period. So over the night, people will still be moving, and some of the congestion will go away. But in a significant, you load, and that's kind of how I like to call response time. It's how fast you load the network. So if you look at that number, that 38.8, that means you're throwing over 1 million people on the road network within a 12-hour time period. So you do create the congestion that takes a while to clear out. And let's just go to the next, please. And this is special regional, still working on this. It pulls 25% of the evacuating traffic from Cameron and Calcasieu parishes. And the reason for even doing this one, there was concerns how evacuation from the upper region might be affected by additional traffic coming from Louisiana. And in this case, nobody is allowed, within Route PM. We do not let anybody evacuate to the east to Louisiana. Even the Texas folks, we all have to head to the west. So these are working in process. Some of them are actually running today. So getting close on getting those finished as well. Next, please, Walt. And this is the full region, still working on this. I'm interested to see what the execution time on Route PM, how long it's going to take. And we're just doing this for the significant and major surge levels, and the vacuum lane and contraflow will be running for these as well. So, and this one I've kind of call it the Armageddon one, just to kind of. So if you hear me talk about Armageddon, this is the one I'm talking about. It just this is the worst of the worst of the worst, where you're evacuating, 100% of the population, pretty much, plus 30% out of the zone. And when you add, with the population in Harris County that not is in a official evacuation zone, it really, really adds a lot of people to the network. And I believe that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions later, at the end of the presentation. And also, if there's anything specific about any of these, you can just contact me, and we can talk about them individually.
So as Daryl mentioned, we're trying to kind of push the analysis here, or actually the presentation of the analysis. Been investigating, the different components of Route PM and the data that it puts out, and how we might utilize that data to give y'all a little bit better picture, or at least a more complete picture of evacuation for not only the region and with respect to these scenarios, but with respect to your individual counties and their zones as well too. So you can get a better sense of what it might be like under different scenarios, different storms going in, and different levels of surge in those areas as well too. So this first example is just it is an animation that Doug has been working on to try to give y'all a sense of what is going on in terms of vehicles leaving different evacuation zones, and then as they're reaching different endpoints. So before I start this up, which I hope it works as well here, the purple circles represent the participating evacuation population, and actually specifically vehicles here for the different areas. The size themselves reflects the relative size of the population that's evacuating from these different areas. So Brazoria has a much higher population, and especially in some areas there. So you can see there the circles there are much larger. The bars here will represent the vehicles as they're passing through these endpoints. So getting a sense then of what is happening with respect to vehicles moving out of the different areas. And then these routes will also shift in terms of give you a sense of the delays that are going on for these different areas as well too and stuff. So let me go ahead and set this into motion so you can kind of get a sense of this. You can see vehicles are starting to leave. You can see the delay times are happening on individual routes as this is going through the different time steps. You can see vehicles as the bars are getting larger in these areas as the vehicles are passing through these areas as well too. So it gives you a bit more of a sense, at least an animation for what is happening. And this then is for the lower regions, this is a significant surge event, 12-hour response with 100% participation for coastal zone A and B, 30% for zone C, and 20% for outside of those zones as well too. The other thing to kind of notice is that how the outside circles are clearing much more quickly. They're not going as far in terms of that, but then also filling the network as well too, and resulting in those congestions as well too. So then we're taking these in even a step further. Sorry, what our plan is, of course, we can't include these animations in the report themselves, but we'll post a number of these as example animations up on the project website so that you can download them as well as view them at your, and to facilitate y'all's planning as well too. In addition, though, we wanted to then give y'all a better sense of what's going on in your counties with respect to the different evacuation zones under different scenarios as well too. So we've got these clearance curves that we won't put all of them in there, but we will have a tabular version of them in there as well too, that we will include in the reports. I actually think if y'all would like, we can actually post these as well too on the website, so the individual ones can be downloaded as well too. But this is just an example for the clearance times by county. This one is a lower middle region running a significant surge event, 12-hour response with different participation rates as well too. And it gives you a sense then of as the hours increase from the evacuation call, what is going on in terms of the clearance time between 0 and 100% for each of the different zones in your county as well too. So for example, we can see then for 50%, 50% will have left the zone by 18 hours for coastal, 12 for C, and 20.75 for zone B. And then here's when they reach 90% as well too. Another thing we've thought about is having a little bit of a notion of an arrow component in here, and then we could put some colored lines through here to kind of give you a sense of when different periods are reached as well too. So this is for Brazoria. This is for Chambers County, for the response curves for Chambers County, given the same event. For Galveston County, and then for Harris County as well too. So we can, again, the plan right now is to present tables with each of the different scenarios. So you could see it then as they bump up from a moderate all the way to a major event. You can see how the timing changes and the curves modify in terms of what the potential clearance time as well too. That I think it also can give you an idea of how different times might be shifted as the curves, as the calls might be phased in for your different areas given the different kinds of response times and clearance times for your areas as well too. So we're hoping that taking this a step further from normal reports that just have the different regional time clearance times, that this provides you all with additional information on how things are likely to respond, at least according to Route PM, given different response times and different participation rates for your own county, and helping you in terms of your planning activities as well too. So that covers kind of where we stand right now. Again, as Kyle indicated earlier, we're working on what the final timelines will be in terms of the reports and the postings of the reports. There will be time in there as well for y'all to review the reports and make comment on them also. With that, I think we'll kind of open it up to questions. Again, there's the project website and the Atlas website. I encourage you to look at both of those. The Atlas website has all the vulnerability information on for each of your counties, as well as each of the evacuation zones as well too. So with that, I'll open it up to questions, and I don't know if I should cut off the PowerPoint or not, but we'll try it with it on right now. Kyle, I'll leave it up to you to monitor this with my PowerPoint up. I really can't see what's the participants and whether hands are going up.
Yeah, well, if you want to leave it up, that's fine. If you don't mind, just navigate to that contact page.
Oh yeah,
real quick.
Sure.
Additionally, I've put I'm putting the links to the websites in the chat. So if you can't scan the QR codes, you can visit the links there. Franny had already put them in the chat, but I'm going to copy and paste them for ease of use here. So we did have a couple questions in the chat. One from Brian Sidebottom asking about Route PM. So Route PM is currently limited to the contractors who are conducting the hurricane evacuation study, but there is some discussion about making it more transparent and more public use. So, but it's not currently there. So, but all these results will be published in the final report. And we also had another question from Jesse, I believe it's Reholt from Galveston County. He asked that those graphics that you presented there at the end, Walt, for each county individually, we will post them on the website. So thank you. They're getting an error from the project website. Walt, if you don't mind, can you? Well, somebody says it's working for them. Ari said that, so not sure what's going on.
I take it back. I lied. It's not working again.
Okay. Well, if you don't mind, can you put the latest, or somebody from A&M, can you put the latest project website in there, or are we having an issue?
Doug?
It'll be up momentarily.
Thank you. So I don't see
I
any
was
more
waiting
comments.
to finish the presentation until we posted it. So
Sorry. Any more comments online or questions? Message. Put the Atlas link in there, so you'll have both the Atlas and the project website in the chat. Again, the atlas is very useful. Go in there, play with those layers. There's some really good information in there. I encourage you to use that. So, as I said earlier in the meeting, we hope to have a decision on when we're going to produce those, or when, a better timeline of when we're going to have this final report. So we will have a meeting presenting those results. But as the team continues to run these models, we'll have a better idea on when we can have that meeting. So our contact information is on the page. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. But thank y'all for attending today. We'll stay online for a moment momentarily in case somebody has a question. But with that, I think today's a wrap. Oh, we got a hand up, Charlie.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate all the information. One of the questions I had on the last few slides where you were talking about examples of the zone clearance times by county, were those specific for only if that county was evacuated, or do they take into account other counties evacuating as well at the same time?
Yeah, they're based on each of the scenarios. So it's the entire scenario for that region that is active, and that's the results for that county and the zones in that county, but not by itself, again, as part of the overall scenarios. Again, though, that's one of the reasons why having the multiple different scenarios, given everything from minor to significant or major, should give you a good series then to examine with respect to the different events, as well as the different response times and participation rates. That answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, Jesse, you got a question?
Yeah, good afternoon, Kyle and Walt, thank you. Quick question. I may be having a bit of a brain fart here. So mass evacuation operations that are initiated at the jurisdictional level, whether county or the respective jurisdictions within the county, is that taken into account? And if so, how?
I'm sorry. Can you? I don't quite understand. One more time. Maybe I'm having a brain fart now.
Well, no, I guess just in the calculations or the parameters that are established for participation, for evacuation participation, does that include mass evacuation operations, like activation of a cooperative plan for county? So say the judge issued a mandatory evacuation and we initiated our cooperative county plan for evacuation. Is that sort of operation taken into account?
To the extent that operational is consistent with the scenario, that's the degree to which it's taken into account.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I just wasn't sure if there was some unique element to it or not.
I don't know. There's nothing specific to running each individual county there. We've clustered them together into those regions and then have those scenarios as well too and stuff. Now,
yeah,
I will say that some counties, like for example, Brazoria, Chambers, Liberty, will have results for two regions. So there's actually a even greater variability there in terms of what the response times would be, given whether the storm is like closer to Louisiana versus coming right in the middle or something along those lines. So there are some variations there across the scenarios for some of those counties that are included in multiple regions, but not individual plans in terms of that in that sense.
No worries. I appreciate it.
Sure. Are we good?
I believe so, Walt. We'll give it just a second, but
All
I
right.
did forget to mention, Tom and Franny, my partners out of headquarters. I appreciate them being on today. So they're great help in this and helping me administer this. So thank y'all, Tom and Franny.
Yes, thanks for joining.
And Alexander said the website is working, so y'all feel free to go check it out.
And Doug will be putting up, if he hasn't already, putting up this the PowerPoint as well too on there. So that should get up there pretty soon as well. This PowerPoint, all the other PowerPoints are up there.
Yeah, I'm working on that now. Actually, my first edit broke. That's why that didn't work for a second.
Oh,
So I'll be
okay.
there in a few minutes.
Okay, thanks, Doug.
All right. Well, we don't have any more hands raised or questions in the chat. Well, I think we're good to conclude today's meeting. So thank y'all for joining, and have a Merry Christmas if we don't talk to you again before then.